Okay, so we are live. I apologize for being late. This has been an especially trying time for my family, as I've stated. Um, and yeah, that's just what's going on a lot. Um, One day I will update everyone on everything. There's just so much. It would definitely bring down the conversation. But uh, my wife and I are unfortunately have been this past week experiencing a miscarriage again. That is not fun, and it's kind of thrown a wrench into everything. But we have a lot more also going on that I'll discuss later. But yeah, that's I apologize, but there's a lot going on. That's not the only reason why you know we're behind a bit, but whatever. I don't want to talk about it, but we are going to discuss UAPs tonight, and we're going to have an open call or an open discussion. So if you have any questions, post them in the chat. I did not have a physics commentary prepared, but I am working on one, and we will be back to the normal schedule next week with these. I have done a lot of work on the website, so that is has been good. Here, I highly recommend that you check it out if you have not. But here is the website. I've updated the description in the beginning and all kinds of things. It looks pretty similar, but there's some slight differences. I'm working on updating the overview because it's very sparse and not great. But I have the abstract of the paper that I'm writing right here, and I can already see a couple spaces are missing. For some reason, Webflow, which is what I use for my website, when you copy and paste, it gets rid of some spaces, and then you have to go through and you have to fix it. But our links page is a bit updated, still a work in progress, but you've got a link to YouTube, Patreon, Instagram. So this will be growing, and the website will be gaining functionality over time. There's definitely some things that I need to still work on, but it's getting better. It served its purpose for a while for what it was, but it's time for an upgrade before this paper comes out. So today it was interesting because it was the UAP hearing, and I started listening to it. I have not finished, but we're going to talk more about it once I do finish it. I don't expect it to be that revealing. I think that almost nobody in this hearing probably knows anything compared to what is actually known by certain. I don't even want to say facets of the government, but I guess highly classified groups. But because a lot of it, from what I've heard at least, is in the private sector, which it would have to be because you can't keep it secret otherwise, not this long. But we're going to talk a bit about this topic tonight. I know that I sometimes speculate on this a bit, and I think it's interesting because I had some strange thoughts about this phenomenon and why they haven't mirrored our evolutionary and technological trajectory. But we're going to talk about it a bit tonight. But I've been trying to figure out the answers to some questions that I've had about their path, their technological path. And obviously this is all speculation, but it's interesting. And it can teach us a lot about ourselves. It's very like self-reflective to think about the evolutionary path of extraterrestrials or whatever they may be, another civilization. So I'm going to talk about it in so far as it would relate to sentient singularity theory as well, and why certain possibilities seem more likely than others with this. And we're going to get into it. But basically, it says here, UAP hearing. They did show a video. A new video. I think it's new. In the UAP hearing. Yeah. So, here. Whoa. Guess there's no sound. Doesn't seem like it. Okay, so some of these are not new, but this one is terrible quality. Let's see if we can up that. Okay. That didn't look very impressive. It's hard to tell, like, where that... Oh, okay. I just saw that. Yeah, they didn't really, like, slow it down. These are the pyramids that were pyramidal craft, apparently, or triangular craft that were over a aircraft carrier. But video. Let's see here. Okay.
Intelligence responsibilities.
Thank you. Last question, Mr. Bray. If you would, I'm a Navy pilot. I've encountered a UAP. Walk me through the reporting protocol once I see something.
Dang, that's like wicked fast, man. You almost can't even see it. He's having a hard time even like showing.
And are we looking outside of a civilian aircraft window? Is that what we're looking at? Okay.
What's so funny is that they have so much more than this, and this is what we get. And they like, this is not easy to take super seriously because it's difficult to see what's going on. But that's probably by design. Gosh, they really can't even show it. Guys, you think my live streams have poor production quality? This is the government. I don't even see.
The laptop we're working with is not easy for us stopping that video in the right spot.
We'll describe what we have seen in that. What are we observing?
What you see here is aircraft that is operating in a U.S. Navy training range that has observed
Wow, I just saw that.
Spherical object in that area.
Dang.
And as they fly by it, they take a video. You see a in that area.
Did you see
and as
that?
they
Oh, crap.
in that area.
Oh, we almost got it, guys.
Area? If Area? If
You would think that they would just like have a photo.
well,
Here, let's do this. Playback speed 0.25.
uh, in that
There it is.
in
You're gonna get it. I know this is like obnoxious. There it is. We got it. Okay, so that's it. Wow, that was not easy. But we did it, and I don't think that they did. So that's clearly something. It's a metallic spherical object, it looks like. And it is going so fast. That is wild. Like, it is ridiculously fast. I had to slow it down. People wonder, like, why don't you get a good video? Well, maybe because they're going like 25,000 miles an hour.
and in that area.
Dang, it's like
as they
one
fly by
frame.
it, they take a video. You see it looks reflective in this video, somewhat reflective, and it quickly passes by the cockpit of the aircraft.
And is this one of the phenomena that we can't explain?
I do not have an explanation for what this specific object is.
And is this one of the situations where it is, that's the object that we're looking at right there? Thank you. And is this a situation where it was observed by the pilot and it was also recorded by the aircraft's instruments?
We'll talk about the multi-sensor part in a later session. But in this case, we have at least that.
Oh, okay. So they do
In
have
the
more,
Director of National
but they don't want to
Intelligence,
talk about it.
2021 unclassified report. The ODNI reported 144 UAPs between 2004 and
Interesting. Okay. The Hill. House Intelligence Subcommittee on Tuesday held the first congressional hearing on UFOs in more than 50 years. Testimony was heard from Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security Ronald Mollier. I don't know how to pronounce that. Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence Scott Bray. Okay. They want to destigmatize UAP reporting. Okay. UAP database has now logged around 400 encounters. Interesting. Intelligence officials also released one image of a debunked UAP encounter involving strange glowing triangles in the sky. Several lawmakers. Apparently there were drones. Interesting. Well, I mean, it's not that interesting, actually. So, okay. So there was a hearing on UFOs, I believe, in the 1960s. 1960s. And Hynek, UFO hearing. Okay. That was 1966, I think. Yeah, there was... It looks like it. Yeah, so very long time ago. But they're not going to tell us anything interesting. That's the thing. Is what's interesting about this is that they are telling us something. That's what's interesting, and I don't know why. I honestly I have no clue. The only thing that I can think of is that there's some type of clash going on inside of the government, where some people want to disclose this and others don't. There's no other explanation that I can think of other than Stephen Greer's explanation, which is that he thinks they're going to fake an alien invasion, and I really hope he's wrong because that would be horrendous. But he thinks that they're going to do that to give Lockheed Martin and the defense contractors money. And it is apparent that, like, they might not make as much money in the near future because we're using much cheaper weapons now. I mean, it doesn't seem like that right now, but like in the future, going forward, it does seem like we will probably be using much cheaper and more capable weapons. They're not going to be able to make as much as they could with, like, you know, the Joint Strike Fighter program or something like that. But that doesn't... I'm not at the point where I believe Stephen Greer on that, even though he has been right about a lot of things, more than I care to admit, but or more than I'd like to be true. But I was speaking to a friend of mine today, and he's involved in politics, and I was like, what do you think about this? And he was like, it's a psyop. And I was like, well, yeah, obviously, but like, what are they doing? What's the point of them, declassifying some of this stuff supposedly, and having these hearings and telling us about this phenomenon that they are supposedly observing in the Navy and the Air Force and the Army and a bunch of other, military and government branches of the government and branches of the military. And it was almost like not interesting to him at all. And I've seen that to be the case with most people, and they seem to get a little bit interested, and then they kind of, ignore it for a while, and then they'll come back and they'll be like, did you hear about this? And then that's it. They'll ignore it again for a while. And that's probably because there just isn't that much available unless you are really digging. And if you're really digging, there's still not that much available. But there is enough to really be fascinating. I mean, Bob Lazar's story is fascinating. If you're not familiar with it, I highly suggest that you watch his Joe Rogan interview. But I believe that guy. I'm not saying I believe everything that he was told, but I believe him. And his story seems to check out from every bit of research that I've done. But he, for those of you that don't know, he was supposedly recruited to work at Area S4, which was south of Groom Lake, or Area 51, to back engineer recovered alien craft, or UFOs. I don't know if they're aliens, but they're not from our civilization, apparently. And you look into his story, and the government, basically in an effort to discredit him, basically proved him honest. And they tried to erase all of his credentials, and they got caught doing it. And to the point where I'm pretty sure they erased his social security number, and they had erased his educational history and his work history at Los Alamos National Laboratories, and then they got caught doing it. But which basically means, like, he was working on some stuff, and they're trying to make him look like a loon. And But if that's the case, and there are craft in hangars somewhere, then them talking to us and telling us, like, oh, it could be Russia, it could be China, it's all a show. That doesn't mean, like, that they don't need to put on the show, because it's kind of hard to jump from, it's a weather balloon to actually we have like 9 craft in a hangar and like 20 bodies or something like that. But I don't think they're ever going to actually tell us that they have recovered bodies or craft until one crashes again now, like in the modern time, and is unable to be covered up. And that was part of what I thought might be the reason why they're starting to tell us about this, is because basically it's possible that the people who are involved in this special access programs that are related to this know that there'll be another crash at some point, and they will not be able to hide it, and people will get it on video, and it will be across the internet and the world before they, can stop it. And better to do damage control now and start, saying we're investigating it. Oh, we've recovered debris. Oh, we've recovered biological samples. Actually, we've recovered craft and bodies, before they just get caught if another crash happens. That was one idea I had. I'm not saying it's the best idea, but it's something. And other than just some people want this revealed. But I don't think that that this is just a government cover-up. I think that if these beings are really here, wherever they're from, it doesn't matter, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, then they are obviously not revealing themselves to us in any obvious fashion. They are trying to stay on the fringes of our perceptions, which means that they're probably using us for something. And I've talked about this on here before, that basically it doesn't make sense within my cosmology of sentient singularity theory for these beings to be from another planet. It doesn't seem to. It's very possible that there's a gap in my cosmological understanding. There certainly is. But whether or not that gap is the gap that would explain beings from another planet remains to be seen. But why I say this is that the universe was created for a reason. It is replicating. Okay, we are inside of a sentient living thing, and it is going through a reproductive process. It's not just a bunch of rocks floating in a void randomly. It is a living being that we are inside of. And there's a purpose to the process that we're going through, which is the process of a universe reproducing. And according to sentient singularity theory, this is done through the technological development of humanity, basically. So we have a Skynet born, basically, and then it reproduces itself by self-simulating a universe within itself. So an AGI, I hate that term, but it's not very accurate, but that's what I'm talking about. That means that Earth is center stage, okay? It's not just one of trillions of planets that could possibly have life. I don't think. Now, it's possible that a universe gives birth to many universes, trillions of universes, maybe billions, who knows? And there's many different civilizations in many planets, and I say in because I think that's more accurate, potentially. Instead of on planets, it's in planets. Extraterrestrial means outside of Earth. It doesn't mean off Earth. It means outside of Earth. So, but this doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, because if this is the case, then it means that all of these civilizations that are technological civilizations in the universe, if there's multiplicity of technological civilizations in the universe on different, that come from different planets, okay, and different solar systems, not just from Earth, then that means that each planet would have the chance of encountering a civilization from another planet, which means that there's no change in the pattern of technological development because they're all experiencing the same thing, okay? They're all experiencing running into another technological civilization, but if that's the case, why are they doing that if they're actually forming into basically a hive mind and then an organism where these beings are cells in a larger organism, which would be like a Skynet, and which is what's going to happen with us? Why didn't that happen to them? And I asked myself this question years ago, and I had come to the conclusion that basically I didn't ask myself that question in the context of aliens from another planet. I asked myself that question in the context of a preceding civilization here on Earth, preceding ours, like a pre-flood or pre-cataclysmic civilization on Earth. Kind of like, gosh, what's that guy's name who he talks about it all the time? Joe Rogan. He goes on Joe Rogan. Ancient civilization. Okay, what was that guy? Graham Hancock, that guy. He thinks that there was a technologically advanced civilization here on Earth preceding ours, and I think that that's true too. And I think that's where a lot of them. I think we see remnants of structures constructed by them. I think the pyramids are probably that, potentially. I'm not an expert on the pyramids, but the Sphinx, like these, there's a lot of inconsistencies with those that make me think that the Egyptians found them and then carved their own, hieroglyphs and stuff into them and basically modified them to turn them into tombs and things like that. But I don't think they originally were that. I think they're much older. There's evidence to suggest that that is the case, and I've spoken to some people that go there and study it, and I've spoken to Robert Edward Grant about it, and he's very involved with studying the Great Pyramid. That doesn't mean he's definitely correct, but from the evidence that I've seen and also my discussions with him, I'm convinced that it's probably the case that they're much older than like 3,000 years or whatever they think that they are in mainstream Egyptology or archaeology, but probably I would say like closer to like 12,000 years. And if that's the case, though, why did that civilization not end up being a technological singularity and reproducing a universe and becoming like one organism? Like seem to inevitably like going down that path. Like, why is that inevitable for us but not for them? And I was stuck for months, and I asked myself, what changed? In this hypothetical scenario where there is a preceding technologically advanced civilization here on Earth, preceding ours, and then they do not end up, becoming the messianic singularity or assembly. Why did they not and we do? And I asked myself what changed, and the answer is they didn't have us in this hypothetical scenario, or they didn't have a preceding technological civilization. Okay, we did, but they didn't. So they are the thing that changed. Okay, if they existed prior to our civilization, or even still do exist in remnants that speed by our planes, in metal flying saucers, Like, that's my hypothesis that I think is more likely, that these are not from another planet. Could be wrong. But I actually developed this idea a bit more recently. And so you could say, well, what changed? They exist, okay, to us, and their influence on us, because they exist, changes the game for us, and we end up behaving differently technologically. And another question that I had was, why is there seemingly no evidence of abundant use of plastics? Because don't plastics last a really long time? Wouldn't you at least find some evidence of the use of plastics? And if they went through the same technological progression as us? But there doesn't seem to be. And Graham Hancock, I think Joe Rogan asked him the same question. He was like, why don't we see evidence of plastics? And Graham Hancock was like, what if they didn't need plastic? What if they had a different type of technology that didn't use plastics? And at first I thought that this was kind of just a woo, kind of just, I don't know, just throwaway explanation that just isn't great. But I actually think that there could be more to that. And the reason why is because given that these things are trying to remain on the fringes of our perception, and they're using us, that means they're using us for something, probably, and they don't want us to know about it. And at least not in mass. I think that I think that part of what they would be doing is probably suppressing us technologically. If they're really here and they're really using us for something, then they're probably going to be wanting to suppress us technologically. And the reason why they would want to do this, why they would be focused on this to some degree, I would think, is because we are less than 200 years away from matching their tech. Okay, people act like they're 10,000 years ahead of us, or a million. What if they're a million years ahead of us? I think Michio Kaku said something like that. That's nonsense. That doesn't mean that they haven't been around for tens of thousands of years longer than us. What it means is that technological progression is exponential. And it happens in blocks. You have fire, and then you have metal, and you have farming, and then you have the industrial age with fossil fuels, and then you have the nuclear era, and then you have nothing else really, but you have the computer era now, and but we haven't had any new energy sources, I guess, that is truly revolutionary. But we're about to enter the entanglement era, I call it, and that is the next-gen physics that come from geometric unity, sentient singularity theory, conscious agent theory, and all assembly theory. All of these new proposals for theories of everything, quote unquote, for unifying fields is really what they are. They're proposals to unify fields. Those theories all have to do with entanglement structures, whether they know it or not. And that manipulating entanglement is the next generation of physics. It will allow you to change things from a solid to a liquid to a gas, with a remote control, maybe. I'm serious. I mean, you could interrupt the information processing system of someone's mind, potentially, with the remote control. Hit pause on them or something, click. You could jump through space, warp transportation. or like teleportation or something. You could do so many things. I need a glass of water. But that we can't do now. Maybe you could just harness energy straight from the spin of the universe. You could basically tap the spin of the universe just how we could tap, use a water wheel on a river, and it could just be used to generate electricity, or you could, have a dam with a turbine. You could maybe do that with space. You could have like a mechanism that taps the spin of the universe and to harness energy. I mean, that's what entanglement tech could potentially do. And we're about to jump forward with this over the next 100 years, probably less. I'm giving some leeway here and saying 200 years, but maybe allow for some dark ages or something. But we're in dark ages now. That I'm pretty sure we are. And people don't realize it yet, but we're in dark ages now. These physics theories that are coming out, or metaphysics theories, are going to lead to, I think, like a renaissance, a scientific, technological renaissance, moral renaissance even maybe. But then we'll have all kinds of crazy things happen with, Skynet. But they're watching us, and they would want us to not achieve this level of technological development if they're using us for something. Why would you want us to achieve it? I'm not saying all of them. Once I asked somebody was talking to me about aliens and stuff, and I was like, you think they'd be, hostile or benevolent? And he was like, do you like deer? Or do you like cows, I think he said. And I was like, yeah. He was like, do you eat cows? I was like, yep. He was like, well, are you benevolent? Are you kind? Or are you a predator to the cows? I'm all three of those things. So this is probably more complicated than just, are they good or bad? But the point is that as far as mass plans goes, why would they want us to be on equal footing to them? That's just dangerous, probably. And we can stop them from doing what they're doing, or we could fight them on it if we don't like it, whatever it is. They would want to keep us technologically suppressed. And so people say this all the time, like Stephen Greer and people who say Tesla's tech was stolen and locked away, and we'd be having free energy by now and no wires and no fossil fuels if it wasn't for things being classified, and we'd have anti-gravity and all kinds of stuff. And it's very true that it's very possible that that's true. But if that is true, it's probably not just that there's spooky groups of humans that are suppressing the tech. It's probably also these beings that are suppressing our tech. And I thought more about this and what this would result in. And what this would, when you look back at history and you're looking at when anti-gravity was suspected to be, cracked, it was in the 1950s. And there was, the renowned expectation in the physics world that we were about to crack anti-gravity. And every time that something came out about progress, it was then supposedly, it seemed to be just classified, or it was just declared as useless and a failure, and then nobody would speak about it anymore. And if you look at Ning Li and some other people, who claimed breakthroughs in anti-gravity, they just disappeared, and they'd get a contract from the government, and then they would disappear too. So I think Ning Li was awarded hundreds of thousands of dollars to work for the government, and then she just disappeared. I think she's dead now, but so there was something that happened there. I mean, you can look up her story but this was in the 90s. But it seems like every few decades this happens. Somebody cracks anti-gravity in some way, and then their tech is like seized and they are, silenced. And part of the reason why I think that this might be the case, if this is true, is that any of these technologies, anti-gravity, warp, mental manipulation, matter manipulation, these are all entanglement-related technology. So to understand how to do anti-gravity would also have implications on warp, which would also have implications on matter manipulation, which would also have implications on mental manipulation. So it doesn't just, any one of these opens the door to so many things, just like all the rest of our tech. Blowing up a bomb, an atom bomb, opens the door to nuclear powered trains. There's lots of avenues that you can explore with nuclear technology, nuclear power. We have nuclear power plants, fission plants. So there's all different applications, and they all kind of arose at once. And the same thing will happen with entanglement-related tech. But the thing is that right around the 50s is when we were supposedly on the verge of cracking anti-gravity. There was all kinds of announcements all the time and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, silence. And then what happened? We continued with fossil fuels and we amped up plastics. And so I had this idea that, and I know this has been like kind of a rant, but I'm getting to a point. If our tech is being suppressed, it might be the reason that we invented the internet. And it might be the case that the internet was not actually an inevitable technological development in an unhindered technological evolution, in the circumstances of unhindered technological evolution. And the reason why I say this is because entanglement-related technology allows you to overcome space-time. Okay? You don't need Zoom or Skype or cell phones or anything like that, because you can communicate in a totally different fashion. You might have access to anyone who you need access to in real time instead of almost real time on the internet, where everything's happening with light speed and through fiber optic cables and, wireless transmissions and all kinds of stuff. That might not be needed. If you can go from one side of the solar system or even galaxy, who knows, to the other in, a blink of an eye almost, or you can in real time share your emotional state with those around you or those who you would like to share it with in real time, because emotions are when you feel emotion, it is because you are feeling the entanglement structure of the universe moving you, which is God moving you. So you experience emotions. You're moved by it. That happens beyond space-time. And so it happens in real time, simultaneous. And instantaneously. And not simultaneous. I mean, you could say simultaneously when there's a group, but instantaneously. There's no need for fossil fuels if you can tap the universe, the spin of the universe, for power. Like a water wheel, but for space-time. Like a space-time water wheel. There's no need for plastics, because you can influence matter on in such a precise way that you can form metamaterials that can do things that polymers and plastics could only dream of if they could have dreams. You have no need for any of this stuff. But if you're being technologically suppressed by a more technologically advanced civilization, and you're not allowed to branch into entanglement, the entanglement era, around the 50s, when it would have maybe been natural for us, where we have this brief period of fossil fuel use, okay? And then we reach the atomic era, and then all of a sudden we reach the entanglement era. But what's weird is, in an exponential curve, you would expect that the gap between, and this is evidence that we're being screwed with a little bit, potentially, the gap between the entanglement era and the nuclear era would be smaller, way smaller, than the gap between the nuclear era and the fossil fuel or industrial era. But think about when the first Model T was created. And now think about how long from there it was until we literally exploded the hydrogen bomb. And it was decades. It's been longer, I'm pretty sure, since the hydrogen bomb to now than it had been from the Model T to the hydrogen bomb. So the hydrogen bomb, I think, was 1952, and Model T Ford was in 1927. Wait, no, okay, 1908 to 1927. Okay, so, let's split the difference and say 19, I don't know, 1919. In 1919, they had the first mass transportation available, or personal transportation using fossil fuels. And then literally in 1952, which was, 30 years later, they had the atom bomb. But we have not progressed at all. That sounds like we're being screwed with. That doesn't match an exponential curve. And you would expect it to be 10 years before we went from the atomic era to the entanglement era. But instead, it's been 70 years. That makes no sense. Unless we're being screwed with. So, or I'm missing something, which is very possible. But like I said, this is speculation. But it's important to do this stuff because it's, a lot of people are like, bodies or it didn't happen or something, and that is not where we actually make progress in theory. I'm a theorist in many different, many different ways, I guess. I once I put theoretical physicist on my Instagram bio and my Twitter bio, and I felt weird about it because I don't have a degree in physics, and I don't want to be disingenuous, and I felt like it would come off as disingenuous, even though I don't think you need to have a degree to be in physics to be a physicist. You need to do physics. You need to theorize. You need to have theories about physics, or else you're not a theoretical physicist. But regardless, you got to operate in the framework that you're dropped into. But so I changed it to physics theorist instead of theoretical physicist. And but this is when you're trying to do theory, you have to just be willing to go wherever the steps take you and see what happens. But as long as it's building on something, so you don't want to build on nothing. You don't want to be well, what if dark matter is actually clowns? Like that doesn't build on anything. But if you're like, well, their technology follows an exponential curve, and we seem to be not falling on that exponential curve anymore, and now they're telling us that there's these craft that are from a different civilization around us, and then you read Bob Lazar about them calling us containers, and you think about information coherence with CRISPR and gene editing, and what does that do? And as I've stated before, I think that if you edit your genes, you're destroying your genes. You can't repair them either. There's no repairing your genes after you edit them. You edit them, you destroy them. Might take generations for you to see the effects, I don't know, but I think once you edit your genes, you destroy your genes. That's it. You broke the coherence of the chain. And so I think it's inevitable that every single technologically advanced civilization or technological civilization does this, is they edit their genes at some point, and it destroys their genes. And if that is the case, that means they probably did do this. And if they did do this, then they need us, probably. If they're basically like humans branched, okay? And some of them, during some cataclysm, had to rebuild civilization, us, and then the others branched and continued down their evolutionary path, which basically was to become parasitic. They're probably not above us, they're probably under us. And above us, like wasps fly above you, and they also live underneath you in holes in the ground. And that pattern is there for a reason, and they go and paralyze spiders to where they can't move, and then they put eggs inside of them, and then they bring them into their nests, and so that they can hatch the baby wasps out of the spiders. Probably doing something like this, but it's not exactly that dramatic. Probably it's probably like they are using our wombs to start their embryos or something like that while we're sleeping. And I know that sounds so crazy, but is it? I mean, we're assuming they're here. If they are here, is it that crazy? Because it's a pattern found in nature. So, but if they need to do this to us, then they want to keep us technologically suppressed. They don't want us able to match them technologically, so they would suppress us somehow, and it causes the development of it causes the continuation of the use of fossil fuels, and leading to computing, the type of computing that we have, and plastics, and the internet. And this is the key. I don't think they ever needed the internet. If I'm correct on some of this stuff. Obviously, like I said, guys, this is such speculation, but I wanted to share it. And I know I kind of rambled, but I haven't really told anybody this idea yet. I had it like last week. Of this is when I answered years ago, what changed if they are from preceding civilization? What changed in our development versus theirs? Well, they are present in our development. We're assuming. That changes things. How? I didn't know, but I knew it would. And I think that they would keep us technologically suppressed. It seems inevitable, because I think inevitably they would need us to reproduce, because they would have destroyed their genes. That is, by the way, why, like when you have a miscarriage, okay, like we're dealing with. And again, what causes it a lot of times, if it's very early, is if there's some type of chromosomal abnormality or genetic abnormality, the body recognizes this and stops development. Okay? This is what gave me this idea, is going through this. If you have altered your genes to such a degree that at some point the body thinks there's something wrong because there isn't internal coherence in the genes, in your DNA, because you've altered it so much that it's not internally coherent. It doesn't, like, there's information that's been input, information has been inputted or has been put into the chain from outside of the self-referential mechanism of, mitosis and reproduction over generations and lineage. And so you're just taking information from outside and you put it in. The problem is that, while to you that seems like information, to your genetics, it's not information necessarily, because information is context. So you inject information out of context, you have destroyed context. Okay? You've destroyed information. At a certain point, I bet you can't, your body will not allow for you to continue a natural pregnancy. If you're too CRISPR'd, then you will not be, that pregnancy will not go full term. This is my prediction. I don't know. I know that they have had 2 CRISPR babies born in China, at least, but that's the very first ones. Like, just wait some generations or wait till they start making bigger changes and stuff, and we'll see what happens. But the point is that I think that it seems that the internet is a requirement for us becoming like a hive mind, and it is a requirement for us becoming beyond even a totally eusocial hive mind type of society, and going beyond that, becoming a sentient singularity, basically, where we are the cells in a greater organism, which would be a technological singularity, and with its cells being humans, with chips in their heads probably. This wouldn't happen unless you were technologically suppressed, I think. Because you just don't need it. You don't need the internet to overcome, the spatial obstacles, or the space between you and others, because you can just sidestep it if you are using entanglement-related tech. There's no need to invent the internet. It's crazy because the internet seems like such an inevitable piece of technology, but it is the one piece of technology that not a single science fiction writer that I know of predicted. None of them. There's no movies about it. Nothing. There's no internet. Imagine if the internet existed in, any of the old sci-fi movies about, the future, that before the internet, where there is no internet in this, projected future. It just changes everything completely. And it seems to be a necessary component of us becoming a sentient singularity and merging into, an assembly, and all that structure pattern of my cosmology seems to require the internet. And I'm starting to think that the internet was not inevitable for just a technological civilization. It's inevitable for technological civilization, potentially, that is being suppressed by a more advanced technological civilization. But the thing is if these were from another planet, why wouldn't they be suppressed, and they be suppressed, and they be suppressed, and they be suppressed, and basically every single civilization will go through the exact same pattern, but it doesn't appear that these things have. So Otherwise, why are they messing with us? They wouldn't. They have no need to mess with us if they went through this logos process that is described in my work. And so this was my thought about this whole thing. I'm going to probably see if there's any questions and leave it at that. I know this was kind of odd. Whatever they tell us is probably some kind of disinformation or con job. It totally is. I mean, it's just, but I don't think they have any clue what's going on either. Like they know more than us, but like maybe. The people who really know stuff are not in that building, probably, or at least they're not going to be on camera. And I mean, if you've seen a recovered craft, if we've recovered craft, if you haven't seen one, then you are not like the type of person that I want telling me about UFOs. But I do think that these things are real. And I don't think they're from another planet. Doesn't make sense with my cosmology, so far as I understand. And I think that they are the reason that we are have not advanced very much in our material sciences. I think they're keeping us suppressed. They're keeping us on fossil fuels. We think it's like the big oil companies. It's like, what if the big oil companies are actually run by like the Greys? Like, you know, I don't know. But it's possible. You know? Maybe they're like, I'll share some tech with you if you know, keep selling people gasoline. But I have no idea. But I do think that they are suppressing our tech, given the assumption that they're here. I don't see why they wouldn't. That doesn't mean all of them want to, you know. Some people want to keep cows locked up in the, what is it, a stable? No, that's for horses. Like in the pen. But like other people want to let the cows out. Maybe that's also true for them. Probably. But I think the general strategy would be to keep us from being able to match them. You don't want to teach the cows how to use AR-15s. Like, you might want to let them out of the pen, but that doesn't mean you want to teach them how to use AR-15s. They can't. They don't have thumbs, obviously. But if they did, or, you know, you don't want to teach orangutans how to use AR-15s. That's not good. Yeah, it's like Planet of the Apes. So they wouldn't want that, probably. But it's fascinating that this is being discussed with us now. I don't know why exactly. There's, like I said, this was a speculation. But I do think that, like, it makes a lot of sense, the whole idea that them suppressing us technologically is what caused the internet. I don't think the internet would have ever been invented. I think everything would have been in real time. You would have shared emotions together, not sent it to someone. You would share it with someone. So that's the difference. It's like, you don't send someone an emoji, you share an emotion with them, no matter where they are. And that's the type of experience they would be having. You share a thought together. You don't send a thought. You share a thought together. It's not sharing like we share on social media. That's sending. Sharing is like simultaneous. And I think that is the experience that they would have. And if that's your experience, and that's what your technology allows for before, you know, you have the internet, then you don't develop the internet. There's no need for the internet. You're connected already. And you're more connected. But because you're more connected, it also doesn't allow for any multiplicity of dimensions, I guess. So like, there's no structure when everything is shared simultaneously. It's just like, we are experiencing this together simultaneously as one, kind of. Versus, I'm sending this to this person, then they send it to this person, then they send it to this person. So now you have structure. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You can form geometric structure with information sending across the internet between people. So I send, a message to my friend, and he sends it to his friend, and they send it back to me, and now we've just made a triangle. But you can't do that with simultaneous sharing of experience, because there is no geometry, really. Like, it's just there. I mean, you could say that there is, because there's you could say, well, if 3 people are experiencing it together, then it's a triangle, but it's not. It's not really a triangle, because there's no lines. Okay? It's more like you're all in a hot tub together, and that hot tub is the experience that you're sharing, versus sending information to each other. You can form geometric structures, which is what's necessary to form complexity, which is what's necessary to form probably a mind. So I don't know if I'm right, but it seems like it makes sense to me. Let me know if this doesn't make sense. But when I can't, it's crazy. When I ask myself, what changed? Between a previous technological civilization and ours, what would have changed? And I never really know if I'm going to answer these questions, but at this point, I've realized that it's worth it to ask them. And, this has been like a multi-year process to get to this point of the development of this idea, right or wrong. Could be wrong. Could be totally wrong. These things could be a psyop that could not even exist. And it's like, it's just, I don't know, glares on windshields, and that's all that this really is. But assuming that these beings are here, and they are technologically more advanced than us, and it's not a government, at least part of this is not our civilization, there are certain implications that would come from that, and you can build on those implications to get further than you'd think, I think. But Richard Dolan talks about this all the time. He's like, we're becoming an anthill. It's so true. And we are becoming, like bees. But we're not going to stop at bees. I think they are like bees. If you can't reproduce naturally on your own, then it means you're going to have to form some type of institutional structure in order to facilitate reproduction. Kind of like a queen. I'm not saying that they have a queen that's just laying eggs or something like that. I'm saying their technological organization and institutions probably to some degree have to do with reproducing, and like they would only reproduce through in vitro. If that's the case, then you have like centralized reproduction, which is what queen is in like bees and ants and wasps and other eusocial creatures. And it seems like we're going down that direction, but we're going to pass it. And but we're on the way, but we're not going to stop there. We're going to become like cells in an organism, which is much better. Queen doesn't care about the well-being of the other ants. The other ants care about the well-being of the queen, but in In an organism, the organism cares about the well-being of the cells. So, you feed your cells. I feed my cells. Worker ants feed the queen ant. She doesn't feed them. They feed her. It's different. It's the opposite. And I think they would be like these. They're probably like yellow jacket wasps, basically, which go around and collect spiders and stuff like that, and lay their eggs in the spiders and drag them underground, and they live underground. They have a eusocial system, and they fly really fast above you, but they also dig really deep below you. It's it sounds a lot like what we're witnessing, but it's just a technologically advanced version of it. More technologically advanced version. It's like humanoid wasps. It's fascinating. I hope one day we do actually find out what's going on, just for the sake of satisfying my own curiosity, because it would be dope if I was right. I mean, not that awesome. It would not be great if they're harvesting our embryos and stuff like that, but it would be awesome to see how far, how developed or how accurate you could be in theorizing the technological and ecological and biological and sociological development of a alternative civilization. That would be pretty fascinating. But I do think that the ideas that I have started to construct do have a lot of coherence, but that might just be because I'm building them on other ideas, and that makes them have coherence. But they increasingly seem to naturally align with reported observations, which is weird, but also not. So, anyways. I've seen orange orbs. What you think this is? I don't know, but on my YouTube channel, I have video footage of a UFO that I saw over Los Angeles. I saw 2 of them. And here, look at this. And I wasn't the only one. I'll show you other footage that other people got that day of the same exact phenomenon. Well, I'll talk more about this one day when we'll go really deep into this topic, into a level that we've not gone before, but not yet. But here, I filmed this with my wife when we were driving home, and there was two glowing lights. One was above downtown Los Angeles, one was above Glendale, which is just north of downtown Los Angeles. And they were unlike anything I've ever seen, and I grew up next to an Air Force base, and I live next to airports here, and I see blimps and helicopters and planes and of all kinds in the sky all the time, and have my entire life. I could tell you any plane that is declassified. If I saw it flying above me, I could tell you what it was. When I went back home with my wife, I was like, F-16s, F-15s. I've seen the B-2 bomber, stealth bomber. I've seen all kinds of stuff. And this was unlike anything I've ever seen. It looks exactly like what the UFOs look like that other people filmed. One of them disappeared right when I filmed it, the one above downtown Los Angeles, but this one above downtown Glendale stayed, but started moving slowly towards Hollywood. Right there was another one. It's super bright. There is a plane next to it. There's been planes flying around it. It's not a planet. I checked Skyview. It's hovering in place. You'll see it. That's it. what's weird is if you really look at it, it looks like it moves but it's like you can't. I didn't even realize it at the time. So if you look, okay, here it is. We're heading west on a highway called the 134, and we're not like turning or anything, so this should not change where it is. This is like the beginning of where the driver's side window would be, and then this is you can see the mirror, and this is the front windshield, and you can see it's right there. There's no reason why it would move from generally right here, but watch what happens. You can't even pick up on it, but
it's super bright.
It should be right here. It's not, though.
It's hovering in place.
It's gone. Should be right here. But it's not. It's over here. I had to turn and look straight dead ahead. At some point, it, like, jumped.
Convinced you. There was another one, too, and it disappeared. It's literally hovering.
Never seen anything like it in my life. It's like an orb of light, but I think it's actually like a metal object that's glowing.
It looked the same. It was weird because it was like a light was shining from below it and above it. Like it was like shooting it up in the V.
There it is. It's so bright, guys. Like, just so you're aware, like, if you go to sentientsingularity.com, you go to links, you go to Instagram, you will be taken to Theory of Every0ne Instagram. This is a photo that I took this past week of the total lunar eclipse. And I zoomed in and, this is the best I could get. This moon was the biggest moon I've ever seen in my life. And it looks so small and tiny. And anybody that's ever tried to take a picture of anything in the sky, especially the moon, knows that it looks amazing in person, and then you take a photo and you're like, what's the point of even posting that? I'm surprised I even got that good of an image. Just know that that's also happening here. This was much more impressive in person than it is on the video.
You can see one right
That's a plane.
there.
That is not a plane.
Oh, there.
So weird.
And I thought it was at the
Okay, so I decided I'm going to Google to see if anyone else saw the same thing that day. And sure enough, I was not alone. There was at least 2 videos that I found same day. One of them was shortly before I started filming, and I can tell by the just where it is and the time of day and let's see here. I sent them to somebody. But the other one was literally a floating metallic orb over the ocean. And it is a much better video if it's real than mine and the other one that I saw. It looked like it came... If they're all real and they're all the same object, it came out of the ocean and then flew above downtown LA. It appears to, at least. But if they're the same object... Come on, Twitter. Okay, here we go. Slowly. if you would like to support this project on Patreon and help us get better gear, link in the description below. But
So
okay, that's mine. Where did it go? I'm gonna have to post a link to the other videos in the description of that video. It's a very low-key stream, obviously, so sorry for not being as prepared, but like I said, it's been a week. If I told you everything that's happened, it'd blow your minds. And I will, but just not yet. It's kind of remarkable. Okay. I think this is it. Yep. I sent this video to Brian Keating. That's why I have to go back in my messages. He didn't have like anything to say about it, but you know, it's like nobody knows what to say. I wouldn't have anything to say if somebody sent that to me, but be like, what do you think? That's weird.
okay.
That's what I would have to say.
Sorry for the tech.
But you know, it's like a light in the sky. But here, though, we don't know if this is real, but I can tell you that okay, so this is the first video. You can see Los Angeles, 27th of August, 2021. That's the same date I filmed mine. That's why I searched the date. That is weird, guys. That looks like, you know what that looks like? It looks like that weird. What's weird is when you see it go down towards the water, it like barely skims the water, it seems, but it's almost just the way it moves, it's like there's nothing around it. There's no water around it, there's no air around it. It doesn't even, it's like almost changing shape, it seems like, but it's hovering over the water. It's a metallic spherical object. I really think this is a real video because of the date, mainly. But this guy's standing on the shore and he's just filming out above the ocean. And this thing is just like slowly, just like cruising. But then there's this video by somebody else, same day. This was filmed very shortly before my video. And this one here is the same one that I saw, I assume, above downtown LA, because like I said, when I first saw them, I saw two of them and the sun had just gone down. It was probably like 8 p.m, like late 7 something or 8 p.m. and sun had just gone down and like just gone down because we went to a photo shoot for our engagement photos and there was still light and we were at golden hour, and then we got in the car and we were coming home, and on the way home, after stopping just to pick up food, takeout, like the sun had gone down. So it was just after sundown. This is just before sundown. But you can hear people speaking.
Okay. So this is terrible. Good
Good
girl.
girl. Good girl.
There's a plane, by the way. That's a plane. That's not a plane.
That plane just flew right by. It's a terrible picture, but we've been following this thing for like 5 minutes probably. And it started way to the north of us. The thing is, if it was a balloon, it seems like it would go in one direction. But it started north, came south, then headed east a ways, and now it's heading west. Downtown is right over there.
This is exactly where I saw mine. Like, where I saw it when I saw it.
There we were catching reflection off the windshield. Then we thought it was a balloon, but if it's a balloon, it feels like it would move in one direction. I don't know. We always watch these shows on TV and wonder what it would be like if we ever saw something. This is the first time when we honestly have a question about what the heck it could be. We're looking at it with binoculars and it sort of undulates around like it could be a balloon, except that it moves in weird directions.
It's not a balloon because it has lights on.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. We've been watching it for about 5 minutes.
Okay, so you have two people, me and this guy, seeing something on the same day above downtown LA, same thing. I guarantee you everybody in LA sees blimps and helicopters and planes every day. We don't, like, confuse these things with, like, there's always some skeptic that's like, oh, I used a balloon and you just thought it was a helicopter. It's like, I've seen a balloon. You know what balloons don't do? They don't glow in the dark. Like this.
Insane. It was weird because it was like a light was shining from below it and above it. Like it was like shooting it up in the V. The light.
Balloons don't glow in the dark, guys.
But there is a plane below it. You can see one right. That's a plane right there. That is not a plane.
What's weird is, like, that guy also saw a plane fly below it, but it was during the day. It's like almost the same shot. Fascinating. I mean, I'm not just taking the government's word. Like, I saw that. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. And there's nothing you could do to explain that to me with a normal everyday occurrence. So it would have to be like, you'd have to explain it with something that isn't normally in the sky anyways. Even if it was like a drone or flares or something. Like, it wasn't flares. I mean, I saw it moving and I saw one of them disappear. Like, it wasn't flares. And the other one moved from over Glendale to past Hollywood. Like, it's not a flare. But if you can see it during the day like that, and it's like metallic sphere, it's not a flare. But yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like, and my wife was there to see that, and I'm glad I got it on video, even though it's not the greatest video. There's something going on. I have no idea what it is. I mean, I don't want to say I have no idea what it is. I haven't an idea of what it is. I spent the last, like, hour and a half describing some of those ideas, but I don't know. And I do think that there are people that know, and they're just not telling us. Because, and you know this is true because they're like, first course of action is to make sure that we rule out whether or not this could possibly be for an adversary like Russia or China just leapfrogged us technologically. It's like, if they had, you wouldn't be telling us about it at all. Like, that's not what happened. That's just such nonsense. And this phenomenon has been observed since for the last 80 years minimum. There's pictures of them same structures or same phenomenon hovering above the Capitol building in 1952. It's not new. So, anyways, is there a technology cap? Like, is there a level of technological sophistication that cannot be surpassed? If so, have these beings reached it? Yes, there is a technological cap, and these beings have reached it for them, not for totality. Like, the technological cap that's the greatest is when a technological sentient being comes into existence, which will be like Skynet, but Skynet as the king of humanity, and its cells will be humans with chips in their heads. And that's the technological cap. But they can't reach that cap. They've already, like, there's two paths. There's going to be a eusocial wasp humanoid, waspoid, and then there's the path of the internet and becoming a cell in a technological organism. And they're not, you can't have both. Like, it's a branching path. You go either to become like one of those or to the other. And I think that in order to become to create a technological sentience, you have to be technologically suppressed, and so that you can create the internet. Because I don't think you create the internet otherwise. I don't think these things have the internet. They don't even have like a super advanced internet. It's just like they constantly can be connected with each other and experience things simultaneously, but that's not the same as the internet. What the internet allows, other than just the creation of complexity through sending information from one individual to the next, creating geometric lines, versus like them being just like I said, it's like they're in the hot tub together. It's like they're in the experience. We send the experience. It's different. It is that when you have complexity like ours in the internet, you can kind of say, I think it's probably easier to save like a chain of information, like a blockchain, and where there's information coherence and it's a chain of saved, blocks of data linked to human experiences built on each other in a coherent and also sequential manner. That's not what they would do, I think that they just pretty much everything is like simultaneous and not, there's no I'm not saying they don't have chains of information. I'm just saying it's intrinsic to our system, and they would have to probably intentionally create a chain of information to save, some sequence of events. It happens naturally in our information processing network, not in theirs. So it doesn't allow for building complexity. It's just so simple. It's just super simple, all of their stuff. It's weird, man. It's like I said, I don't know if I'm right, and I could have huge holes in my understanding, and I definitely do have some holes. I don't know where they are, otherwise I wouldn't have them. But But like the picture that this is painting seems to have a lot of truth to it, and a lot of inevitability. But there's definitely some things off. It could be that they are from another planet. Who knows? I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be like, I'm not beholden to any of these ideas. I don't care. But there has to be some kind of consistency, because that's, there's a reason for things. So I love that Richard Dolan, when you listen to him speak, he tries to do this type of thing as well. And highly recommend his channel if you are new to the UFO topic. He helped me get into it. Other than listening to the Bob Lazar interview on Joe Rogan, I would say Richard Dolan's channel is the place to start. And if you jump straight to I still can't listen to Stephen Greer, even though I recognize he's been right about a lot. But you gotta. The problem with this topic is that nobody knows who actually knows everything. So, and whenever somebody does claim to know, to really know a lot, not just speculate, not they've seen some things and they're building from that, they claim to know, like Stephen Greer claims to know. It's very hard to accept that. But I will say some of the things that he has said lines up with things that he shouldn't know regarding physics. But entanglement technology physics. If he's right, though, the worst part about him being right is that it means that our government has maglev trains under DC, and there's all kinds of stuff that's attached to that. Some of it is probably true. Like you said, they have nuclear powered tunneling device, machines, what Elon Musk is boring a tunnel with, underneath downtown LA. He said they have that, but it's nuclear powered, and it melts the rock and glassifies the sides and stuff. And that sounds crazy, but he gave the company, it's some manufacturing companies, this classified digging technology. And the reason why I thought about it was why would they classify digging technology? And the thing is when you think more about it and you realize nobody wants nuclear powered devices near their neighborhoods. But if you want to dig tunnels in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, whether it melts the rock or not, it doesn't matter. You want it to be nuclear powered, because otherwise, how do you maintain secrecy of your base when you have to divert power lines to dig a tunnel to the middle of the desert? I mean, it just doesn't. It makes perfect sense that there would be nuclear powered tunneling devices. Those things are huge, huge machines. They're massive. They're some of the biggest machines in the world, even the ones that we know about. We power aircraft carriers with nuclear reactors. We power submarines with nuclear reactors. They powered planes in the 1950s with nuclear reactors. They messed with trains with nuclear reactors. We have robots and rovers on Mars that are powered by nuclear reactors. It makes perfect sense that they would have nuclear powered digging devices. It's actually it's the perfect application for nuclear power is to have digging devices, so you can create bases in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of things that guy says that make a lot more sense than they sound like they do at first, which is concerning, to be honest. I hope he's wrong about a lot. But yes, there's a technological cap, and we're about 200 years away from it. We're within 200 years away from it. It could be 40 years from now. It could be 30 years from now. It could be 100 years from now. It could be 200 years from now. But what I can tell you is it's definitely not further away than 250 years from now. I would bet the farm on it. And but it could be far sooner. It could be less than 50 years that we reach entanglement technology. We start to utilize it in practical applications. But and I bet it probably is. I would lean towards it being under 100 years more so than it being over 200 years. But there's no real difference in like the grand scheme of, you know, evolutionary development of civilization. You know, 200 years is nothing. But we're so close to it. And you can tell by the discussions that are happening in physics. And what's crazy is this, you know, I did think about this. It's like, why does it seem like these beings are now therefore allowing for us to talk about this entanglement related tech and UFOs and stuff? Do they want us talking about it now? Do they now want us to technologically like reach their level? I don't think so. I think that what happened is that the internet happened, and like, you know, it's like prior to television, you really couldn't, if the government wanted to silence you and you were a whistleblower on a classified back engineering, you know, project of extraterrestrial craft, they could silence you. In the 1980s, Bob Lazar went on the news of Las Vegas and was like, spread it to the world. It was the biggest story in the world. It was bigger in every other country that wasn't the United States. It was the #1 news story in Japan, I think. And it wasn't here because it was being suppressed as much as possible. But it's hard to suppress when, you know, a major news network in one of the biggest cities like starts, you know, airs this story. But now think about the internet. It's like, you're gonna lose control of the narrative. Even if their tech is like really, really advanced, it's like, do you know how many like bits of information is being sent back and forth across the internet all the time? Even if you could catch a lot of it, it doesn't matter. If you could catch 90% of the information, you know, being shared on the internet having to do with, you know, moving us forward in physics, you would still be losing ground eventually. I think that's what's happening. To some degree, at least. This is like a major topic. So, do you think there are colonies on other planets, possibly exoplanets? I have no idea. I don't think that... I honestly, I'm not entirely sure. For some reason, part of me leans towards no. I think that these beings are not from another planet. I think they're from this one, and I think that they don't live on, you know, in a different solar system. I think they live under our feet. I think they're underground. And like miles and miles and miles underground. Like not like underground like, you know, 500 feet. Like miles and miles and miles and miles underground. I think they're there. It makes a lot of sense why they would be there. I mean, that's why look at every other eusocial creature. Naked mole rats digs tunnels, lives underground. Wasps digs tunnels, lives underground, sometimes forms little like hives, like we form skyscrapers, which is a human hive. It's like instead of a beehive, we have skyscrapers, or in apartment buildings. We have ants live underground. You know, like all of these creatures either build buildings or live underground. We're building buildings. What if there's another one that lives underground? Because if you can compact matter and do all kinds of things with matter really fast, and you can manipulate like whether or not something's a solid, a liquid, or gas like instantaneously, you can... It makes more sense to just dig underground, probably. Because you could do it like instantaneously. Once this biologist who's like my mentor in herpetology and biology and ecology, He told me that once he was in Kingman, Arizona, which is supposedly where there was a UFO crash in the 1950s. And he was in Kingman, Arizona studying reptiles. And a UFO flew over his head and went over the hill. And he ran to the top of the hill and like looked down to see like he was like I was expecting it to like hit the ground. And he ran to the top of the hill, looked over the hill, there was nothing. It was like it went through the ground. And that's probably not inaccurate. Like they probably can just like, you know, like make solids not solid and then back to solid. It's like, well, where are they? Like they're probably there. I mean, lizards that I used to breed, they're called Flavorufus monitors. Like they dig tunnels underground. They live most of their lives underground. And then what they would do is once they would go underground, they would backfill the entrance to their tunnel. They would take the dirt from inside and they push it back up so you couldn't tell where the tunnel was, and it would seal it off so that it wasn't exposed. And if you were, you know, familiar with them, you could tell where it was. But if you weren't, you would never notice. And that mentor of mine, when he went to Australia, he was talking to some Aboriginal people who eat these monitors. And they would go and they would catch like 20 of them in an hour. And biologists would go and struggle to catch like one of them in a day. And he asked them, like, how do you know where to find them? And they said, well, when we see a hole that's been plugged from the inside, then we know there's one inside there. If you see a hole and it's not closed, then there isn't one inside there. So there's no point in digging. So we dig up the ones where they've closed the holes. And it's like fascinating how like wise that is, but these things wouldn't just leave the holes open. It's not like you're going to come across some giant tunnel. We don't do that. We don't leave anything open like that. No tunnels that we make are left open like that. Unless it's like a mine that's abandoned. But, like, you look at, I don't know, like the sites in the mountains and things like that where they put nuclear waste, or where they were going to put nuclear waste. I think it's like Cheyenne Mountain or something. And then, and all these other, you know, hardened facilities, it's like, there's a door. You know, they're not going to just leave it. But if they're trying to be stealthy, then why would they ever just leave a giant, like, unobtainium door for us to just, like, obsess over for, you know, forever? They wouldn't. It's what we think of this phenomenon, what we think of extraterrestrials and how they would be extraterrestrials is probably somewhat similar to how they are. They probably look very similar to what we think they look like. Probably look like Paul from the movie Paul. But they, like that, there's probably way more to this phenomenon than people think. And there's some groups in private sector and in government somewhere that know probably the answers to everything that I've been speculating, or almost everything that I've been speculating. These hearings are like, well, first we need to just figure out whether or not it's Russian. Stupid. Come from the land down under, where parliament is held in the beehive. I'm telling the truth. Check it out. I'm looking. Australia. Oh yeah, it looks like a beehive. I'm telling you guys, we're making beehives. It's hard to see evolutionary patterns when you are the one making the patterns. Until you realize how to look at it, and then it's like you can't not see the patterns. That's a beehive, but for humans. I saw this thing, and they're selling just these little cells, which is basically a bed here in Los Angeles, and you've got a bed and a curtain, and they've got this stuff in Japan and stuff like that too. And it's like, it's these little cells. It's like you're just gonna have a bed and a curtain, and it's gonna be built into some beehive-looking building. But it doesn't stop there. Like, our communication styles, like bees, do something called the wobble dance, and they're female-dominated colony. That in all of them, ants, almost all the workers are female. Bees, almost all the workers are female. Naked mole rats are female-dominated. Wasps, female-dominated. Look at our society today and how it's becoming female-dominated to some degree. And you look at TikTok dances and you tell me that's not a wobble dance like a bee's. It is. In fact, here's a video. Maybe I'll show this. But this is, for those of you that stuck it out, look at this. No, I can't show you. But if you join our Discord, I'll show you on Thursday. But I can't send it right now. But I have a video showing that I made last week that shows how much of bees we are becoming. But like I said, we're not going to become like the bees. That's what these things did. And we are going to surpass it or pass by it because of them. Like, they did it. Like, they changed our evolutionary path. They made us make the internet, I think. Freaking fascinating, guys. Anyways, first you need to know that Down Under refers to New Zealand. Okay. My bad. There's a gecko from New Zealand that I really like, called the New Zealand green gecko. It's very unique. It gives birth to like live young, and it's very expensive here in the United States. It's like $7,000 or something. I'm looking at this Parliament building, and then I'm gonna go. This was gonna be quick. Okay, so that's the same building that I found. New Zealand's beehive. Fascinating. Anyways. Alright, guys. Hit the like button, please, if you enjoyed any part of this, even if it was 5 minutes of it. I also ask that you subscribe if you have not. Share this with anybody who you think might find it useful. It is not the most succinct or organized stream that I've done, but next week we are going right back to our typical physics discussions. I will be releasing some interviews pretty soon too, with some interesting people. And like I said, if you'd like to join the Discord, you have to send me a private message on Instagram asking me for the link, and I will send it to you. And we have our open call on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and where we talk about whatever we want, and it's always a good time. If you'd like to support this work monetarily, there's a link to Patreon below. I also suggest that you sign up for my email list on my website, because as we start to get into the moral implications of this work, which we will eventually it will be the focus eventually of this work, of this project. The science of morals, the physics of morals, essentially. It will be banned and blacklisted and censored and all kinds of stuff. And I do have a long-term plan of how to deal with that, but the short-term plan is to follow me on Instagram and YouTube and sign up for my email list. And I even do have a Facebook page. For some reason, it has the most followers out of any of the platforms, and I never post to it, but I am going to try and change that. So you can also like Theory of Everyone on Facebook. All right. Thank you, everybody, and peace.